The Jayson Tatum injury and the Knicks' second-round win altered the landscape of the Eastern Conference. And now I'm sitting here on the brink of the 2025 season, weirdly confident the Knicks are going to own the next 3 years.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering this team for nearly a decade, and I'm the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast, so be sure to check out all my work covering the NBA as a whole over there. This is Locked On Knicks. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 days a week. And be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans and subscribe to both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, I'm joined by John Karalis, the fantastic host, one of the best we have in the Locked On Podcast Network, of the Locked On Celtics podcast, to ask about how his feelings have changed since the New York Knicks summarily dismissed the Celtics in the second round. Does that beating, does Jayson Tatum's injury change his long-term perception of the Knicks as a threat to own the East over the next couple of years? We get into when Jayson Tatum is coming back, and is Boston actually even trying to win this year? Will they make a trade to support a fledgling front court? And finally, will the Knicks or Celtics run the East going forward? We get into that all in just a sec right here with John. All right, guys, as promised, we were talking to John Karalis, the host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. John, you just told me where you traveled, so I assume it was great. But how's your summer, man? And how excited are you to have basketball around the corner?
It's was very nice. Lots of time on beaches. Big beach, nice blue water and blue drinks and all of that stuff. But I'm ready. I'm ready for basketball to come back. And it's been like the last few weeks of trying to come up with topics has been a struggle. So it's like, because, with the Celtics, you got like some new faces and all of that stuff, but I need to see some things in practice. I need to see some guys on the floor. I need to talk to some of these new guys. So media day is finally here. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Now I get to go to practice and talk about things, real basketball.
Yeah, it is incredibly exciting. I'm counting down the days. First preseason game, I think only a week away as we're recording this. It is all around the corner. The last time you and I talked, I was in a hotel room in Georgia. We were making predictions for Knicks Celtics. And that is not me rubbing anything in your face, because you took Celtics in 5. I took Celtics in 6. And then I told you immediately after we recorded, like, I kind of want to take Celtics in 5. I feel like a bad Knicks host and a bad Knicks fan doing that. So I'm not going to say that, but that's kind of my gut instinct on how this is going to go. Due to a variety of factors, it ultimately did not go that way. And I've done this with Koo over at Locked On Pistons, and then with Tony at Locked On Pacers. I'm curious if that series like changed your opinion long-term on the Knicks and what kind of threat they are to the Celtics, especially in respect to this summer, where Brad Stevens, I think wisely, took a very long view on what this run is going to be with Jayson Tatum and Jalen Brown, and said, hey, like given the injury to Tatum, it's not going to be next year, probably. Let's reassess. Let's clear the cap a little bit, and let's make sure we have a long runway. I think the Knicks feel like, maybe not as long of a runway, but the Knicks feel like they have a 3-4 year window here. Do you come away from that series thinking any differently about the Knicks and the Celtics' place in the East beyond just Jayson Tatum's injury, or did it not change too much for you?
Well, it changed some. I definitely, not surprisingly to Knicks fans, feel like the Celtics were very complicit in their own demise. The first 2 games were like, obviously they had big leads, and they, I think, kind of messed around a little bit at the end of game 1, and then way overcompensated at the end of game 2. And it took a little while for them to be like, oh, okay. And honestly, looking back on it, I'm like, man, if the Celtics had faced the Knicks in the first round, I think we would have been correct. Celtics in 5, Celtics in 6. that series with Detroit toughened New York up in a big way. I mean, I remember people saying, like, the guys in the locker room, like, thank God for Detroit. In the Knicks locker room, they were saying, thank God for Detroit, because that kind of steeled them for this Celtics series. And I don't think Boston expected that, right? It's like, I'm not speaking out of turn when I said the Celtics just toyed with the Knicks all last regular season.
Yeah.
So how do I see the Knicks differently? Well, I see them as a tougher team than they were at this point last year. I didn't have this, the same level of respect for the Knicks, because I thought they were a soft team that, and a lot of that has to do with Karl Anthony Towns. And I do come away from the playoffs liking Karl Anthony Towns less, but I do think that the team overall is tougher. It definitely makes me feel like Mitchell Robinson is a major, I think, part of your future success, that you kind of need him to be healthy and to have that identity that I'm talking about. So, I definitely earned a lot more respect for the Knicks and their toughness, which I didn't think they had before that playoff series. So that toughness is what I think caught the Celtics by surprise and put them down 2-0. And once you're down 2-0, it's just a little tough to get back. And so, I credit to the Knicks. They went in there and they, I can sit there and be like, well, the Celtics had all these big leads, but didn't matter because they didn't win the series. They didn't win those games that they had the big leads in.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because I think I'd push back on the idea that the Knicks didn't have a history of showing toughness, which I know isn't what you said, but like the 23-24 team obviously just got like wrecked by injuries, but that group was really showing you something the way they fought back against Philly. I mean, guys like Isaiah Hartenstein, Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, I think it all proven that. But there really was something to prove from that perspective when you subtracted a couple of guys from that team. Even Julius Randle gave you an element of that with his physicality, and they had to prove it again with Cat. And I do think the midseason addition, as weird as this is to say, because he's a guy who didn't play a minute in that series, PJ Tucker, I think helped their locker room, helped get everyone on the same page. And I think, to your point, like I wouldn't say the Knicks played a perfect series from a basketball perspective. Like I thought the Knicks played terribly in the first 2.5 quarters of game one and game two, but they showed real mettle down the stretch. My one area of like confidence in the Knicks in that series was if they could keep it close. I thought Jalen Brunson could be the best player on the floor in the final 4 minutes of games. And that's not me saying he's better than Jayson Tatum. I think Jayson Tatum is a better overall player. I think I just had a belief in Brunson as a closer. And in some ways that was proven out. Tatum was in the midst of like an all-time game 4, obviously, when he got hurt. And the Knicks, like, despite OG Anunoby, I think, playing all-world defense on him, did not have any kind of answer for him. So that is certainly something that could have swung the series, even though the Knicks were well on track to win that game 4 when he got hurt. The other thing, obviously, that really hurt the Celtics is in the regular season, the Knicks just had zero answer for Kristaps Porzingis. And I don't think there was an answer on the roster. I do think, obviously, in the minutes Mitchell Robinson was out there, he was more capable of handling those types of coverage. But the Tatum KP pick and pop was just sort of the trump card for Boston. He was such, and you noted this before the series, KP was such an amplifying factor. And I'm interested, and we'll talk about this a little more in segment 3, but just what the future of the series is without him, because to me, as much as having like 2 elite wings in Tatum and Brown, like set the Celtics floor so incredibly high, KP was such a ceiling raiser for them. And I was fascinated. I understand why they did it. I was fascinated when they decided to move on from him this offseason. And maybe we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But I wanted to ask you what the goal is for the Boston Celtics this year, because they seem to be striking somewhat of a middle path, right? Obviously trading away some key pieces. We'll hit on it, but have not really reloaded that front court. And now we're getting reports from Jayson Tatum saying, like, I never said I was going to miss this entire year. I could be back this year. We're hearing from his doctor that he's never seen an Achilles recovery like this. Is there any world where the Celtics can, I don't know, trade someone like Anthony Simons for another big and try to pivot into winning this year? Do they look at this as a gap year where they're like, all right, maybe we'll quote unquote, like get, I don't even want to say get lucky, but like get lucky and miss the playoffs and end up with like a high lottery pick and add a really promising young talent to this group? What is the goal for Boston this season?
So it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because okay, so Tatum goes down in this series. It's in May. So June rolls around. You're only a month from the injury happening.
Mhm.
Mid-July, like when the trades start happening, month and a half, no one has any idea what Tatum's going to be like. I have been confident since the beginning that he will play this upcoming season. I know we're going to talk about that, but even so, even if the team said, hey, there's a chance, I don't think anybody thought anything like he's going to come back and he's going to be ready and he's going to be like, we're getting Tatum back. So Brad Stevens makes these moves like Porzingis had to go. Holiday had to go. They were over the second apron. They had been over the second apron for a couple of seasons. It was untenable at this point. They just spoke on Thursday with the owner, the new owner, and all of that stuff, and they made it clear that all of these moves, it didn't matter what happened. All of these moves were going to happen this year anyway. Now they can say that adamantly now, but I do believe that these second apron penalties are so harsh that those things were going to happen. So what's the goal? You got to find who fits the Tatum Brown dynamic, at a bargain price. You've got to, every time I've talked about this, I've invoked the Indiana Pacers because you have to find, like, Rick Carlisle was correct, I think, over the summer when he said it's about depth. It's about fits. It's about, it's not about 2 or 3 stars, even though the Celtics have the 2 stars. It's about 8, 9, 10 guys that all play together, and you can sacrifice a little bit of talent because the collective cohesion of a team playing hard, playing well, and being on the same page can make up significantly for a loss of talent. So the Celtics are trying to find some of that. So whenever Tatum is back fully healthy, presumably starting next season with Tatum and Brown and whatever group, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and the group around them, that they have now put together a team that's not like the team you remember from last year, but more closely resembling the team that you lost to, after beating the Celtics.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess the most important question in regards to, like, when that kicks in is, when will Jayson Tatum be back? We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Celtics. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, and you can take it anywhere and get the boost when you need it. I absolutely love how fast it kicks in, guys. I have ADHD. Which most people think means there's like a certain degree of hyperactivity, which is true, but there are also stretches where I just want to sleep half the day away. And with 5 Hour Energy shots, I love just how fast it kicks in, that it's sugar-free. And the biggest part is that I don't have to worry about crashing later, because that is the part that just kills you. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. All right, what's up, guys? We were back, crossing it over, Locked On Knicks, Locked On Celtics. I'm Gavin Schall of the Locked On Knicks podcast. He's John Karalis of the Locked On Celtics podcast. John, when do you expect Jayson Tatum to be back? Because we are hearing reports of a record recovery. Obviously, he is going to be very excited to be back on the court. Does how competitive Boston has been prior to him coming back affect that? Like, would Boston accelerate that if they're looking really good early in the season? Is that something that'll affect their trade deadline? Like, what do you make of all of it?
So, as Tatum said on NBC, that's the $1 million question. Now, I've been saying, like I alluded to before, Tatum is coming back this season. I've said it from the beginning. He is, in a way, lucky that the injury happened in New York City because you have the hospital for special surgery there.
Yeah.
You have absolute pinnacle of sports surgery, orthopedics in New York City. And the preeminent Achilles repair surgeon was there and operated on him the very next morning. And the speed bridge technique that they used is known for getting guys back sooner than we're used to. And his surgeon is in People magazine saying, I've never seen a calf recover like this. He's not going to have a loss of strength. And you're like, oh, okay, this is great. And then he says, oh yeah, I just had my first on-court workout. You're like, okay, it's 19 weeks. It's still September. I think it was September 22nd when he had his first on-court workout. You're like, okay, September, October, November, December is 3 months enough time on the court to recover. January is 4 months enough time on the court to recover. Like, I'm starting to do the math. You're like, if your first on-court workout is in September, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's plenty of time. December, January, February. I've been saying March and thinking that that's optimistic. I might be amending that and going sooner. I think now I did look at the Celtics schedule. I'm trying to do like Celtics sleuthing. And he said, I don't know when I'm coming back, but when I do, I know it's going to be in front of the Celtics fans. So I start going through and I'm like, okay, February 8th, the New York Knicks come to town and it's right there. 2 home games right before the All-Star break. What a perfect time for Tatum. That would be almost 9 months since the injury. It would be what was I on? 4 months, 5 months since getting back on the court.
Mm-hmm.
It works perfectly for him to come back right before the All-Star break against the Knicks, have it be a little poetic at home against the team it happened against. So I'm going to say February, March at the latest. I think he's coming back February. It might be back before then, before the All-Star break. So that would be an incredible recovery. I think Tatum could be the new standard for how Achilles injuries are judged, especially for younger players, and like get that surgery right away, get the speed bridge technique done, get your, start that weight bearing work as soon as possible. And you can come back much quicker than anybody without key thing here, Gavin, without rushing. This is not rushing at all. This is just fully cleared. This is when he's 100% fully cleared, ramped up, ready to go.
When he comes back, he'll be a big part of the conversation in the Celtics front court. I assume pretty much, though I guess he mostly played there last year anyways, pretty much exclusively a 4 for the Celtics, because there are real questions about this front court that, tell me if I'm forgetting a name here, but I have Luka Garza, Neemias Queta. They signed Chris Boucher, who a lot of Knicks fans wanted and really liked. What is Xavier Tillman, I believe, still there?
Still there for now.
What is the game plan for the Celtics front court? Because this does not seem like, I only can compare it to like maybe the Suns last year. I guess they had KD was pretty much a 4, so he was a part of it. But I don't really remember a team that is seems like, even despite all the injuries, a sure thing for the playoffs, having this many questions in their front court.
Yeah, there are a lot. In fact, it's funny because when Brad was asked about that, Brad Stevens was asked back in July about it. And you know how front office people get like optimistic and like, oh yeah, well, he couldn't even get himself to do that. He said something like, I know on paper, people aren't going to think that this is the best. So it's going to be up to them to prove people wrong. Like even Brad Stevens, the best thing he could say is, prove me wrong, kids. Like, so it's not great. Queta is coming off a pretty good Eurobasket. And so I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not a fan of how he moves. He is kind of like an injury risk, but he's their only legit 7-footer, and I think the confidence from Eurobasket could translate. So that's going to be, I think, where they start. And then sometimes you got to wonder, do you go double big with Boucher there? Do you bring Boucher off the bench? Where does Garza fit? They're going to have to figure out Garza. He's part of that. Will he fit, in a depth kind of centered lineup? So they do have some things to figure out. The front court is easily their weakest point. And why I think they're going to be a middle of the road team, 500 team, maybe 42, 43 wins, is because there are going to be plenty of games where they kind of play well, but they got no one to stop anybody at the rim, and they won't rebound well. And I think they're just defensively, they're going to have so many breakdowns that I think it's going to cost them.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see if the Knicks can take advantage of that in their early season matchups. Particularly, it seems a little uncertain, and this maybe is an impediment to the idea that he will be the everyday starter, but that Mitchell Robinson is going to play back-to-backs this year. But if those games where he's out there line up against Boston, like I wonder if he's going to be even more of a thorn in Boston's side this year. Obviously, the question of who guards Cat's going to be interesting. Could be his former teammate in Luka Garza, who barely is a very good offensive player and could challenge Cat a little bit on the other end of the floor. But I think that is going to be a pressure point for the Knicks when these teams match up in the regular season. But John, I wanted to hand the proverbial mic to you. What do you want to know about the Knicks heading into next year?
Well, I'm very curious because, you kind of saw the Tom Thibodeau thing coming. But I'm kind of curious what you think how they're going to respond to Mike Brown. Is this like one of those, like, I did hear guys, especially Jalen Brunson, talk about, very glowingly about Thibodeau. Is this one of those like, hey, we expect a lot out of you guys, and yeah, great job. You beat the Celtics in the second round. We're not hanging a banner for that. Is there pressure? Do you think there is pressure on the Knicks because of the coaching change and because of kind of how expensive you are becoming? Is there pressure to be like, and of course, most notably, kind of wide open East. Yeah. It's you guys, and it's the consensus top two is Cleveland, New York. And I think it's in that order, but you can very easily make a case, because Cleveland's got some injuries. You can make a case that it's going to be New York, Cleveland. So do you feel the pressure of all of that stuff on the Knicks going into the season?
All right, guys, we'll be back with John in just a sec to finish this one up, talking the present and future of the Eastern Conference. Did the Knicks run it? Did the Celtics run it? Did the Cleveland Cavaliers run it? We'll get into it all in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, well, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, well, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. What I love about this is it takes away some of my anxiety over managing my finances. This is something that weirdly is like always a little intimidating to me, a little overwhelming to me as someone who did not study business in college and did not always have the most financially savvy people, I guess, guiding me through life. Monarch Money, the fact that it's all one place, the fact that it gets me and my partner on the same page, it is all incredibly helpful. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. I think the last point you mentioned is far and away the biggest one, more than Tom Thibodeau moving on. I think Tom Thibodeau being fired was an acknowledgement that, like, he's great. He's far and away the best coach the Knicks have had in the last 25 years. He rebuilt this team. Maybe he's underappreciated, and the Knicks will end up being worse without him. But there was a clear ceiling with Tom Thibodeau, and I don't think that ceiling included a scenario, barring like crazy injuries across the board to other teams and crazy luck for the Knicks, where the Knicks were going to win a championship. The point is that, like, Boston, again, maybe barring a trade, maybe you disagree with this. If Jayson Tatum comes back and has the greatest Achilles recovery of all time and he's 100% himself, like sure, that version of Boston, if they trade Anthony Simons for a quality center, could they beat the Knicks in a playoff series? Yeah, like I think they would be like no more underdogs than the Knicks were against the Celtics last year. But there's, in my mind, like not a contender this year. Indiana without Tyrese Haliburton is not going to be a contender this season. This is the window, right? Like OG Anunoby's 28, Mikal Bridges is 29, Jalen Brunson is 29, Karl Anthony Towns is 30. Like all these, I can go through the entire roster. Josh Hart's 30. Like these guys are Cat's 29. Wow, he's still young. But these guys are all smack dab in the middle of their primes. Is my point? Like you are never going to have a better window to win a title. And I went on very randomly, but I went on radio in Nebraska this week, and they asked me like, would this season be a disappointment if the Knicks don't win a championship? I'm like, well, if they get to the finals and they're competitive, like I hesitate to call that a disappointment because they're not obviously the Thunder are far and away the favorites and sure, deserving to be far and away the favorites. And yet, like the goal is a championship. I think Jalen Brunson, some other people might disagree with this. I think he is talented enough to be a 1A on a title team. And none of that saying like this Knicks team has some very obvious structural flaws in starting Brunson and Cat together and having two weak points defensively, two massively glaring weak points at times defensively as their two best players. That being said, like you've put so much, I mean, trading 5 first-round picks with Mikal, they rightfully signaled like, hey, this is go time. And in turn, like the pressure is on you this year to execute and win a title. And if they don't get it done this year, very similar to Indiana last year, even with a team that still feels like they have some runway, you kind of look around and you say, all right, well, we couldn't get it done this year, but like Boston's going to be back. They're going to be awesome. Indiana's going to be back. They're going to be awesome. If not now, when?
Yeah. And you have the ascending Orlando, Detroit's, you have teams like the second apron era is the popcorn popper. And right now, the Knicks are at the top of the popcorn popper, but it won't be long before the Knicks and the Cavs and the Celtics are all pushed out over the top and have to start to rebuild. At the press conference with the new ownership group, the old / part of the new group owner, Rick Grossbeck, who he was part of the committee that drew up the second apron and this whole plan, he talked openly about it's on purpose. You have a couple of years at the top and then you get choked out intentionally, So it's like you do all the stuff that you do and then they put you in the ring with Brock Lesnar and then you get like crushed and then you get, sent to the bottom. So the Knicks, like when I say pressure, man, I believe in that. They have committed to this group. I'm looking at the salary cap sheets. Karl Anthony Towns, including this season, 3 years under contract, counting his player option. OG, 4. Brunson, 4. Bridges, is it 4 or 5? 5. Yeah. Their numbers are big. You got 2 more years of Josh Hart, 3 if you count the team option. And all of those guys, Hart is the cheapest one at $21 million. Next season, when things start kicking in, like it's gonna get expensive in a hurry. Once you get, and it's not about even, it's the Knicks, it's MSG. You just pay the taxes, and who gives a crap? You get second apron penalties. You start talking about freezing draft picks and all that. You get into trouble. So. It won't be long. If you can't do it this year, do you have the Karl Anthony Towns conversation? Do you what conversation? How much longer is Karl Anthony Towns around if this year is another second round exit?
Yeah, I think the most disappointing thing for the Knicks the last couple of years was they didn't get all the intel they could. Like in 23-24, they missed out on having that run with Julius Randle and saying like, all right, like, can this actually work with Julius Randle? Because there were real questions about that. And it felt like I've talked to you about it, but that first January, that first month after the OG Anunoby trade, the Knicks had a plus 15.6 net rating, I think. And that was the highest rating any team in any month had that season, tied with the Celtics, had one that was equal to it. And it felt like that group maybe had a championship ceiling. Last year, we didn't get to see that from the Knicks, but I think part of it was because Tom Thibodeau refused to pivot off a starting lineup that after January 1st was a net negative. And that was something you and I discussed a lot in our series preview. And somehow the Knicks, like, I think despite that lineup hurting them and the Celtics taking advantage as they had all season of the fact that Josh Hart there was out there in that starting lineup, they were able to overcome that, right? Maybe under, to our previous conversation, somewhat fluky circumstances. I do think the exciting part about this season, and part of the reason you bring in Mike Brown, I would hope this was a priority for the Knicks when they hired Mike Brown, is that he's going to be a lot more versatile with this roster. He's going to play like far more varied groups. Like the Knicks starting five last season played 1,800 possessions together. That was 500 more than any other five-man lineup in the NBA. I'm hoping they're closer to the Cavs, who didn't have a lineup play over, I think it was 550 possessions last year. And to Tom Thibodeau's like credit, or at least to like advocate for him a little bit, he didn't have as much depth to be as flexible. I think Mike Brown has been given a bench 5 through 11. I think the Knicks, I'd put them up there with pretty much anyone in the NBA, maybe aside from like the Thunder, Clippers, and Wolves. Like they're right in those conversations for one of the better benches. He should be able to mix and match aggressively. There's no reason you should come out of this season, barring injuries, like not having great intel on if this team is capable of winning a championship. And to your point, in this Eastern Conference, if you don't get out, and none of that is saying that Cleveland isn't awesome, right? Cleveland's really good. They beat the Knicks 4 times in the regular season. Outside of the fact that the Knicks beat them in 2023, I don't really have any room to talk trash as the host of Locked On Knicks, but they are not intimidating in the way the Boston Celtics were last year, where there was like a clear tier above. And I didn't see a world where the Knicks were to go beat Boston last year, like despite the cat trade. This year, I think if the Knicks don't get out, you have to say, like, I don't think we can do it with this group. And I could see a world where they move off Cat. They could, like, McHale has to be dramatically better and more consistent to justify not even his contract, but just like the asset allocation the Knicks made for him, and will continue to make going forward just without trading him. Like, I still think he has a lot of value around the NBA. But I think no one other than Jalen Brunson and maybe OG Anunoby, because he single-handedly can kind of keep you competent defensively and give you a chance against the Jayson Tatums of the world. Outside of those guys, I don't think anyone is pinned down after this season.
Man, I don't know. This is gonna be an interesting season. Like this, it's all set up for you guys. It really, really is. If it's not the Knicks and the Cavs in the conference final, something went incredibly wrong for one of you guys, or it's like one of 3 scenarios. Something went completely wrong for either you or Cleveland. Detroit or Orlando, like Cade Cunningham just went like supernova and is in the MVP candidate, or Banchero is an MVP candidate, and just something clicks and they just have like taken over and they have a no pun intended magical run.
Sure.
Or Jayson Tatum comes back and it's like, oh my God, like you said, it's a miraculous recovery, and the Celtics go from middle of the road team to, oh, Jayson Tatum looks normal. And Jaylen Brown has been awesome this year in this role. And, you know, we didn't even talk about, because I didn't want to make the injury excuse, but like Jalen had surgery to repair a torn meniscus.
Yeah.
And like that hampered him in that series as well. Like if these guys are healthy and like, oh no, it's Jalen and Jayson and like a team that's kind of figured something out, then I don't know. I'm not going to count the Celtics out completely, but like I'm there's a reason why I don't put them in this conversation this season. Next season, different story. But
that's kind of what I want to finish on, John. I'm really curious what you think about the future of Boston. ESPN came out. I don't know if you did an episode on it. I'm saving it, but their future power rankings, just the next 3 years, not the next 5. If not, I think it would be very different, particularly for the Knicks. But for the next 3 years, they had the Knicks number 3 in the NBA. They had Boston, and I think this is a little harsh. They dropped them from 2 to 13, and maybe like next 3 years, I can vaguely see that, but I disagree with teams like the Hawks being ahead of them. I don't really see the Spurs being ahead of them. I totally disagree with the Lakers being ahead of them. Like this is, it's wrong if the Locked On Knicks guy is defending. But that being said, what are your expectations for Boston's future? I still think, assuming Tatum comes back and is 100%, which like is still something to see. Like everything we're hearing about the recovery is great. Obviously, the track record of guys coming back and being 100% who they were athletically, Tatum's age is very much in his favor. His surgeon, the timeline of his surgery, the technique used, all in his favor. That is still a question. But if Jayson Tatum is Jayson Tatum, and they have him and Jaylen Brown, and they have Derek White, and they have Peyton Pritchard, Knicks fans, cover your ears, for my money, one of the most underrated players in basketball. I would not be surprised if he made an all-star team this year. He scared me John more than anyone outside of
Yeah.
Jayson Tatum on that Celtics team. I did not want him shooting the ball. I didn't like when he was on the court. I didn't want any part of Peyton
Yeah,
Pritchard.
he has that. He has that kind of aura.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
TJ McConnell, same like idea.
Yeah.
Like they scare you for some reason.
Yeah, he's a bad dude. But what do you think of the Celtics' future, and especially relative to the Knicks? Because to your point, like I think the East is not just open for the Knicks this year, like especially with Miles Turner leaving Indiana, that is another dagger. Cleveland really has to show something this year to like not to keep that team together. Like I don't want to be over dramatic. They're very young and they're very talented, and they have a longer runway than the Knicks do probably. But I'm curious what happens if they have another disappointing playoffs. Like where does Boston, a team that just looks so clearly ready to own the East for the next decade, maybe like in the early days of Tatum and Brown, like how long is the runway, and what's the plan to like get this back to where the expectations should be in Boston with those two?
It is a little complicated depending on how this season goes. But if you get Tatum back at 100% and Jaylen Brown sticks around, because I do have a fear that this season, like I do have a fear that Jaylen Brown's going to have an incredible season. Not fear that he's going to have an incredible season, but I have a fear that he's going to respond to that incredible season saying, okay, I've proven I can be the number one guy. Tatum's coming back. I need to go somewhere else where I can be the number one guy. I need to, because this is his last season in his 20s. He's going to be 30 the following season. And like I can see a world where he says, I'm 30. I have a few good years left where I can really show what I can do. I've proven I can be a number one guy. Trade me to a place that needs a number one, Atlanta, wherever. He's from Atlanta. That's why I bring it up. And that changes the dynamic a little bit. I can see a world where that happens. But if it's Tatum and Brown, or if Brown does go, you get a good return for him. And Anthony Simons gets traded, like you said, like Simons getting traded for a big could happen no matter what. If the Celtics get a good deal for a big, Simons is gone. So if they can pull that stuff together somehow and Tatum is 100%, then they will have a chance. And their whole thing is squeezing 2-3 more years of being a contender out of this team before real tough decisions have to be made and the Celtics have to rebuild. And then you start thinking about trading all of your stars to bottom out and that. So I think the next 2-3 years are going to be the last years of Boston's like championship window. And then from there, it's a matter of, does Tatum stick around? Does Tatum want to stick around? How does that work? Do the Celtics say, we love the fact that you want to be here forever, but we're going to trade you someplace because we got to get our picks. We got to get bad. We got to be a 20-win team. And just, we got to be at the bottom of the popcorn popper again. So 2-3 more years of contention starting next season. And then from there, I don't know. So I disagree with 13 in a 3-year window. But if you're going to go beyond that, then there will be time where the Celtics are at the bottom of the league.
Yeah, I think I am pretty optimistic about the Knicks over the next few years. There are some questions about the roster depth, and like to your point, like where they're going like they're going to bring in Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon at the expense of one of the rookies they drafted last year, perhaps Pacome Dadier, who is maybe, was only like a pick in the 20s, but like is a 6'8", like potentially two-way wing who's shown some flashes, probably the most promising guy out of that group. And it seems like the reporting is that the Knicks want to trade him to ensure Landry Shamet, who, like, God bless him, he was awesome in the Eastern Conference Finals. So he's a roster spot. It feels like the Knicks know, like, they have a tight window. They got really lucky because pending anything from Pablo Torre, Jalen Brunson, out of the kindness of his heart, decided to pass up a whole lot of money. I think Jalen's just kind of that guy. A whole lot of money and give the Knicks a 3-year window. Because if he had taken everything he could, this would maybe be like a 1-year window for the New York Knicks, or a 2-year window for the New York Knicks. And instead they have 3 or 4 years. It's more so a question of, like, is this group good enough? Because I don't really see how you add to it. I don't see you get better. When they made the McHale trade, they took themselves out of that market to add the Giannis second type star and say, we are going the route of having like 2 of the top 7 or 8 players in basketball. And they're not going to do that anymore. Instead, they have 5 guys who are maybe all in the top 80, who are all really, really good, but with some real flaws. And we'll see if that tops out as merely like conference finals, or lose like a semi-competitive NBA finals, or does this team have enough to get over the top? this season will tell that story. But John, unless you had anything else, I wanted you to be able to tell Knicks fans where they can find all your great work. And then we'll say goodbye and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Well, my written work is at Boston Sports Journal. You can go check that out there. You leave angry comments in the comment section. Obviously, I'm host of the Locked On Celtics podcast and host of Locked On NBA Game Night on Wednesday nights with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. So come make fun of me there.
Yeah, same deal over here. You can find Locked On Knicks, of course, wherever you find Locked On Celtics, and check me out on Locked On NBA on Saturdays with my guy, Rylan Stiles. Until next time, he's John. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Celtics.